Now, joining me in the studio is the Shadow Treasurer, Brad Rowswell. Thank you very much for your time. Housing in a sec, but I want to talk about debt and GST. What's this argument that's blown up today between Victoria and New South Wales?
Well, you've got a situation, Steve, where Victoria is now receiving $3.7 billion more than they were in the last reporting period in terms of GST returns. Keep in mind, this is on top of $1.2 billion more that Victoria is receiving in terms of state tax return.
A lot of money.
A lot of dough, mate. And the thing that really gives me the irrits is that in these circumstances where you've got a circumstance where Victoria's receiving $3.7 billion more than they were previously, you've got Premier Allen and now Treasurer Pallas not committing to any new or increased taxes in this budget. They're saying that they won't commit, that there won't be any more taxes.
Which is shorthand for saying there will be.
Which is bad news for Victorians who have, over the last 10 years, experienced 53 new or increased taxes. And a Labor government that's wasted $38 billion on major project cost overruns and blowouts. Well, it's a basket case.
Let's have a look at how Tim Pallas, the Treasurer, has described this today. Have a listen to what he had to say.
I will continue to adjust our tax settings in order to ensure that our economy is strong and grows. And quite frankly, our economy is the fastest growing, the strongest in the nation.
Well, there you have it in a nutshell. I will continue to adjust our tax settings. That says to me taxes are going up again.
Let me debunk this for our viewers at home. That means that taxes will go up. And Labor are addicted to taxes. We know that because they haven't seen something or walked past something they haven't wanted to tax previously. I'm fully expecting that in this budget they'll introduce their Airbnb tax, their holiday and tourism tax. Now, coming out of COVID, the tourism industry in this state is still stuffed.
It's going to drive, Brad, more people to Queensland.
Indeed, and more people to other parts of Australia. I want to be the alternative treasurer of this state for Victorians.
So you'd have no Airbnb tax?
I don't think that it should be there in the first place. I think that's a pretty simple thing.
You're going to inherit a mess, though. This is what I need to get from you, because the debt, what's that hitting now? 127 billion?
No. It's $177 billion. If you believe the budget, the current budget papers put out by the Labor government in December last year.
What's the daily interest bill on
the daily interest bill at the moment is $15 million
a day,
climbing to $24 million
a day
in 3 years' time. But if you believe Standard & Poor's, who have been spitballing where the debt could be, Victoria's debt, according to Standard & Poor's, and frankly, Steve, I trust them more than I do the Allen Labor government, are suggesting that Victoria's debt could be something like $250 billion. Now, the daily interest payment on $250 billion debt is $40 million a day. That is a high school in this state that can't be built each and every day because Labor can't manage money.
I wrote a column about that debt in the Herald Sun. It'll be up online. It's up online now. It'll be in the paper tomorrow. A lot of the feedback from that says that with this mess, the opposition doesn't want to get into government because it'll be so hard to fix.
Yeah, but I do want to get into government, Steve. I'm not here to have another term in opposition. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for Victorians. And today we've seen Chris Minns and Tim Pallas have fisticuffs.
Let's have a look at that. Here's the Victorian Treasurer, Tim Pallas, who's supposed to be a senior politician here in Victoria, in a childish slap at New South Wales. Have a look.
But unlike the New South Wales Premier, we're not being churlish about it. We don't have this dripping sense of entitlement that seems to constantly come out of New South Wales. He might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but he is a tool.
So here's the thing. When Labor politicians fight against other Labor politicians, what they actually forget is the plight of Victorians. And at the moment, Victorians are being pushed and pulled in every which way. It's not just Labor's new or increased taxes. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. We've got housing prices going up, grocery bills going up. We're the most expensive place to send your kid to a public school in the country. Grocery bills going up the lot. And you've got two Labor senior ministers, the Premier of New South Wales and Victorian Treasurer, who are at fisticuffs calling each other's names. How does that actually help Victorians?
Well, it doesn't help Victorians at all, but I go back to my point. You're going to inherit this.
Sure.
So, we talk, one of the taxes that has got people most upset is land tax.
Absolutely.
They're getting their land tax bills now. The value of a property that you had to pay land tax on used to be $300,000. It was brought back to 50,000.
Yep.
That captures everybody. You're not going to be able to afford to unwind that.
And we've seen well, and we want to look at it. We've actually launched a tax discussion paper in July last year. Just 2 weeks ago, we heard from the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. We heard from the Property Council of Victoria. We heard from a number of other key stakeholders about the impact of tax on housing, on home affordability. We say we're in a housing and a home affordability crisis. Labor's solution to that, instead of going on and delivering the 80,000 homes which they've pledged, is to tax Victorians more. So yes, I've said before, Steve, Victoria is an economic basket case. People do say to me, why the hell would you want the job? Well, I want the job because if we don't arrest the mismanagement of Victoria's economy now, after another term of Labor, it's only going to get bloody worse.
You heard my comments, Brad, about immigration. Melbourne is at bursting point, but governments like Labor governments in New South Wales and Victoria and federally are quite happy to have a large immigration intake because that's more people to pay tax and so they get more money through the door. Is Victoria or Melbourne full? When you look at their housing, I think the waiting list for public housing is something like 10 years.
Yeah, it's something like 70-odd thousand people. It is absolutely ridiculous after 10 years of Labor that people would have to be
waiting.
waiting.
Why would you bring more people in here?
Well, indeed. And I've had a brief look at the figures. In the Howard years, there was about an immigration intake of about 120,000. Under the former federal coalition government, that increased to about 250,000. We're now considering an immigration intake, annual intake of about 600,000.
Well, in January this year, we had 128,000 people came to the country.
So my point is that immigration must be sustainable. Steve, you know Melbourne as well as I. You know this country as well as I. We are a generous people. We have a generous heart. We are arguably the most successful multicultural place in the entire world. But frankly, mate, we've got to take care of ourselves. When we can't house the people that are here, when we can't find jobs for the people that are here, we frankly must make a decision on that and decide what our priorities are.
Just finally and briefly, this secret document about the Housing Commission towers that the Andrews/Allen government wanted to knock over and indeed have knocked over, places like Param, they've just levelled them there. Why can't we know where these people who were living in those places are going to go and live?
Steve, the word integrity and Victorian Labor they've never been used in the same sentence, and I doubt they ever will be. The only way to fix this is in 2026 to vote out Labor, to send them a strong message, and I think the message of 10 years of Labor is actually resonating with Victorians at the moment, and I'll be working towards that over the next 2 and a bit years, mate.
Good on you. Brad Rowswell there, thank you very much for your time.